I have now finished the Odyssey and the Iliad by Homer, meaning I have read all of his epic poems, and I can finally brag about it to all my friends to make me seem like I'm an intellectual. So, this, like I've said before, was my second time reading the Odyssey, but my first time reading the Iliad. So now I can sort of compare and contrast them because I read them back to back, and I gotta say, no surprises here. I way, way preferred the Odyssey. If I had to give them both a rating, I would give the Iliad like a 5 or 6 out of 10, and the Odyssey somewhere between a 7 and an 8 out of 10. So quite the difference in quality, and that's because the Odyssey just has this forward momentum that the Iliad does not, where it's just kind of like you feel like you're going in circles until the last few books of the Iliad. With the Odyssey, there's a motivation, there's a goal, there's a lot of adventure and obstacles that are really cool to see Odysseus face. There's like intercutting between him and his son and his wife back home. There's humor, there's suspense, creepy moments. It's just really fun. It's no wonder it's often used as like an entry point for students or anyone interested in reading ancient writing. The only ancient tale, whether it's a poem or a play, that I enjoy on the same level as the Odyssey would be the Aeneid, which was written by Romans about 800 years later as kind of like the Roman equivalent of Homer's epic poems, which kind of brings all of Homer's adventures in the Odyssey and the war from the Iliad into one contained story. But as you might guess, the Aeneid is much more dense, it's longer, so the Odyssey is a lot friendlier to beginners, but it's also obviously very a rich story, which is very rewarding on multiple readings, and I can definitely say that for a fact now because I noticed so many things on this second go-through that I didn't before. Part of this was because since my first time reading the Odyssey, where I knew next to nothing about ancient Greek stories, now I've read, the Theban plays, the Iliad, the Aeneid, all this other stuff, so now I get all these little references that are getting thrown at me all the time, and I'm aware that there's more references that I don't get yet. For example, I haven't read the Oresteia trilogy of plays, and I know the Odyssey references it quite a bit. But what's interesting is the Odyssey came out hundreds of years before either of those, so that's very clear evidence that Homer was working with all of these stories that were probably just told orally, passed down through word of mouth and hadn't been written down yet, or maybe we had earlier versions that got lost of those other stories. But yeah, just a really interesting read through this has been. I'm going to do a full-length review for it, so stay tuned for that.